Hey guys, it's Dave. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm planning to talk a little bit about Astra's Q2 financial results as well as the various announcements they made to go along with it. They're pretty groundbreaking news, a lot of massive changes going on, so I really thought I should go over it. I know some people are getting a little tired of hearing about Astra, so if this video isn't for you, that's fine. You can come back for the next one. This will be probably the last Astra video I make for quite a while. I don't see myself making any more Astra dedicated videos lately. They may show up in a news segment or something like that, but I doubt I'll be making any dedicated videos on them after this. Bit of a difficult topic to get into here. I know a lot of people are angry about Astra, and understandably so. They were sold some massive promises, some massive ambitions, and Astra hasn't really executed. As a result, shareholders have lost a lot of money. There's a lot of excitement about the company a year ago when they first went public. The valuation was very high. The CEO, Chris Kemp, made some large promises. They haven't been able to successfully achieve a lot of those. But on the other hand, I don't think the company has really committed fraud, like, say, Nikola Motors, where their CEO basically came out and lied about their capabilities, their technology, and just really made all sorts of false statements to investors, leading in the price to go up. I don't think that was the case here. I think kind of everything happened in good faith. They really did believe they could execute. Obviously, it didn't work out, but I don't think they were trying to mislead anyone or commit fraud. So I want to be respectful to shareholders who still own this company, trying to figure out what to do. I think we all know when you're holding a stock that's down a lot in value, it's a difficult thing to do, to decide whether you want to sell it at a loss or hold on to it, hope it may bounce back. So trying to be respectful to the shareholders of Astra in this video, while also sharing my opinion, which is simply that I don't hold the stock and I have no intention of ever investing in the company. I'm covering them because I think it's an extremely interesting case study. It's been a big company in the industry in the past, and we have a lot of big news on them. I just also would like to apologize. In my last video, I made a mistake. Somehow, Astra's CEO, his name is Chris Kemp, and somehow I got it into my head his name was Brian. I'm not too sure how. I know I've called him Chris many times before, but yeah, my brain's just weird like that, so sorry about that one. So what we're going to talk about today is going over some of the highlights from the Q2 earnings call, which was kind of interesting in its own right. We'll talk about a couple of the big announcements they made, and then I want to dive into the balance sheet and go over kind of how much cash they have available, what I think their situation is looking like. Just, spoiler warning if you don't want to listen to the end. Personally, I wouldn't invest in them. So for all your shareholders out there, take that for what it's worth. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Everyone is responsible for making their own decisions. I just wouldn't want to be a shareholder of the company. So let's hop over to the earnings call and take a listen to what was said. First off, just to take a quick look at their investor update presentation that went along with the earnings call. These are given out by every company every quarter. To be frank, it looks extremely bare and extremely small. Not much in here, really. So we have our usual disclaimer, forward-looking statements, and then talk about our mission. So I think we've already seen the mission statement, but that's not really news. Astra's space platform, launch services, space products, space services. I wouldn't say they actually have much in the way of space services, but maybe that's a future plan. Yeah, nothing really new here. Tropics 1 investigation continues with a picture. That's it. And okay, this is somewhat new. So Rocket 4, they originally had it planned to be 300 kilograms mass to orbit, and they're upping that to now 600 kilograms. So they've doubled it while still trying to keep the exact same price. So we'll see if they're able to do that. That would increase the total addressable market of the satellites they could send to orbit. So I guess that could be that is some new information. 100 million committed equity facility. We heard about this piece of news, and I'm going to go into that in more depth. But I mean, they're not even giving out any details on it really. 103 committed orders for engines through to Q2. So they have some engine orders with a nice picture and talking up their engine. And then we have the financial metrics, which frankly don't look great to me. Obviously, they weren't launching much in Q2, successfully anyway. So revenue's down, adjusted EBITDA down, really, adjusted net income down, and adjusted earnings per share down of 19 cents versus 17 cents. And then we have Q1 versus Q2 continue, operating expenses up, cash and cash equivalents down from 255 million to 200 million. Capital expenditures are also down. That's good. You really need to reduce your capital expenditures when you're in a situation like this. And that's the entire presentation. So really not much to that. Usually I expect a lot more information, a lot more meat in the presentation, but pretty simple and not a lot here. Okay, so now I'd just like to listen to a couple highlights from the earnings call with you and give you my thoughts on what was said on the call.
On Tropics, as I mentioned on June 12th, we launched the NASA Tropics 1 from Cape Canaveral. The investigation into the anomaly continues, and we expect to share findings once the root cause has been determined. However, we do know several things. First, we had a nominal first stage flight followed by a nominal main engine cutoff. Second, we had a nominal fairing and stage separation. And third, during the upper stage flight, the upper stage experienced an anomaly that caused the upper stage engine to run out of fuel and shut down before reaching the velocity required to deliver NASA's payload to orbit. Furthermore, we're in discussion with NASA to proceed with Tropics and launch System 2.0.
Okay, so that's our first clip, basically trying to get to the root cause of the failure of the recent launch, and we still don't know what happened. Basically, for some reason, their upper stage ran out of fuel too soon. They don't know why yet, and they're still investigating it. They did kind of go over things that went well, but that doesn't really matter so much to me because they're canceling the whole rocket at this point. So the fact that they can get, the first stage nominally, I don't find it too impactful.
Since our first successful flight under the leadership of Benjamin Lyon, Astra's chief engineer and executive vice president of engineering and operations, Astra has more than tripled the size of its development team, completed the build-out of a new rocket factory facility, new test facilities, and has made significant progress in the development of Launch System 2.0.
Okay, so just talking about Astra's expansion, more than tripled their development team, all these new facilities, and I really think when you're in a financial situation like this, that's not really what you should be doing. They need to get as lean and mean as possible in order to conserve as much capital as possible to get through this phase of cash burning, because the runway is really not looking very long, and they need to extend that as long as possible if they're going to make it to the launch of Rocket 4.0.
In addition to the B. Riley facility, we continue to evaluate various financing strategies and the overall capital markets as we carefully manage our financial profile.
So there we're hearing, yes, they have raised potentially up to $100 million in new capital by issuing shares. I'll get to that in a little bit. There's also a high probability that they'll take on more debt. They're looking for ways to increase their cash situation. So this may not be the end of the increasing debt and issuing new shares to raise capital.
And then we started talking to our customers, and it was pretty clear that after 2 out of the 4 flights that we had flown were not successful, the opportunity to fly on a vehicle that has received all of this attention and energy from our team over the past year was also favorable to them. And in the end, we kind of did what our customers wanted us to do, which is to focus all of our energy on a system that takes advantage of all of the investments that we've made since we took the company public.
So he's trying to say this in kind of nice flattery words, but what it sounds like to me is basically the customers didn't want to put their satellites on this rocket anymore. They felt more comfortable putting their payload on rocket 4.0. This rocket has failed twice out of 4 launches. Its reliability record is not great. Satellites can be extremely expensive to make and replace. So tried to spin this as, oh, it's great for customers to be able to move to our new launch system. But what it sounds like to me is that the customers don't actually feel comfortable putting their payload on the old rocket, and that's one of the reasons we are canceling Rocket 3.
What sort of rough targets can you share with us? Because I think I don't want to drill you down to a certain month or necessarily date, but is there some like rough target to test for the first test flight, and then if that goes successfully, the first commercial launch? Is there something you can share with us?
I think what I'll share is, as you look at 2023, what we're looking at in terms of revenue forecasts will largely be spacecraft engines. In 2023, I want to give Benjamin the time and the team the time to really get this right and do the work that is required to build the highest quality, most reliable. So we want to do several test flights. We want to test every component of the system. We want to test the engines. We want to test the stages. We want to test the software. We want to test the electronics. And really, as we looked at this thing, we built a plan that we believe gives them more time and also fits the needs of the customers that we can put on manifest as we talk to all of our customers. So there's a lot of uncertainty because we want to give the time to the team to do all that testing before we do another commercial launch. So I think what we've decided is let's just focus on giving the team the time to accomplish these milestones, and then we're going to share all these milestones with all of you as we accomplish them. So with each of these major milestones, you're going to see Astra give everybody an update. Here's what we've accomplished. Here's what's next. We've accomplished that one. Here's what's next. Then there'll be some test flights. And I think that as we continue to do this, we'll continue to get closer to an answer to your question.
So yeah, obviously talking there about the time horizon for when their new Rocket 4.0 will be flying. To me, that doesn't sound very good, right? They're not that close. Sounds like there's no way they'll be flying commercial payloads in 2023. So no launch revenue at all in 2023. 2024, maybe, but you need to have a lot of test flights. Things always go wrong in this business. You have to fix it, which they obviously had trouble with their previous rocket. So who knows? Who knows if 2024 even they'll have any launch revenue? I don't. I wouldn't put my money on it for sure. I hope they execute and they're able to succeed, but I have my doubts, and I'm not really willing to invest my money in this company right now. Okay, so after listening to that, I just want to turn your attention to this recent article by Jeff Foust. He's a well-known journalist and covers the space industry as well as an analyst. And listening to that earnings call, you really got the impression that NASA was practically committed to launching their Tropics missions, the remaining Tropics missions, on the new Rocket 4.0 of Astra. But this article seems to suggest that's not really the case. So he said, thank you for NASA for your continued faith in us and that kind of thing. It all sounds very nice. But yeah, we didn't get a firm commitment that they will launch on Rocket 4. And we have some interesting things on this article from NASA contacts. So with Rocket 3.3 no longer available, NASA is looking for alternative options to launch the remaining Tropics CubeSats. We are still looking for a ride, and once the ride is found, we'll launch it, said program manager in NASA's Earth Science Division during a NASA town hall meeting at the Small Satellite Conference on August 8th. So according to him, they're looking for a ride, and once it's found, they'll launch it. It doesn't look like they have a ride lined up on Astra's next generation launch vehicle. In the earnings call, Astra executives said that NASA was considering launching Tropics on the new Rocket 4, saying, quote, "We are in discussions with NASA to proceed with Tropics on Launch System 2.0, said Chris Kemp, CEO of Astra. However, Rocket 4 would be a poor fit for Tropics as the vehicle is designed to place up to 600 kilograms in low Earth orbit, where each Tropics CubeSat weighs only a few kilograms. Agency sources said Astra's announcement that the company was discontinuing the Rocket 3.3 took them by surprise. Switching vehicles poses cost and schedule challenges that NASA is still studying. So yeah, you really wish Astra would be more open and have more communication with NASA on this, seeing as how they are due to launch these Tropics missions on their rocket. You definitely don't want to surprise NASA canceling a rocket that they think they're going to get a ride on. However, even before the announcement, NASA was looking into alternative options while awaiting the outcome of the investigation into the June launch failure, which the investigation is still ongoing. Sounds like, to me, there's a good chance these will not actually launch on Astra's Rocket 4.0, and maybe even Electron has a chance of getting the contract, which would be great for Rocket Lab. I've heard some chatter that also Virgin Orbit might be a good fit. It is a very unusual orbit, so it's a little bit tough to get to. We'll have to see what they decide to do. Sounds like it's a long shot that Rocket 4 will actually end up launching these missions, from what we're reading here. So a little bit deceptive or disingenuous, perhaps, from Astra management. So this $100 million committed equity facility agreement that they recently announced, I just wanted to go over some of the details on it because I think there's a few items that a lot of people are missing that actually spell a bit more trouble for the company than you may even be aware of. First off, just going into the agreement covers a committed equity facility that provides Astra the right, in its discretion and without obligation, to sell and issue up to $100 million of its Class A common stock over the course of the next 24 months to Principal Capital, subject certain limitations and conditions. This is a big one here, including that in no event will the number of shares of Class A common stock sold exceed 19.99% of its outstanding stock. So basically, they can't sell more than 20% of the amount of their outstanding stock. So you think they have access to $100 million here when you look at this announcement, but their current market cap today is only $345 million. 20% of that is actually less than $100 million. 20% of that comes to $71 million. So really today, this agreement only gives them access to $71 million, not $100 million. If they want to get that full $100 million, the stock price needs to go up to 44% so that their market cap reaches $500 million. And then if they issue these shares at that point, they'll be able to get the full $500 million. Of course, that's a big if. We don't know when they're going to need the capital, what the share price might be at the time, or if they're just going to do it now and take the $71 million. Also, just keep in mind, this is a massive dilution for shareholders at a very low valuation. Some people bought up in, high teens, maybe 20, and now they're looking at being diluted 20% at a value of, say, $1.06 a share. Extremely tough for shareholders. However, Astra massively needs this money or they're in a lot of trouble. And to be honest, I think they need more money than even this, as we heard on the earnings call, when they're still looking at potentially even finding more debt or new ways to raise money outside of this agreement. So keep that in mind. They may not have access to the full $100 million announced here. Now let's actually take a look at the balance sheet. Because with this company, I'm really getting worried about the cash they have, how long they can stay in business. Might be a little tough to see here. I've taken screenshots from a few different quarters of their balance sheet and also added in the end of the year numbers from 2021, so Q4. So at the end of this current quarter, they had about $200 million in cash and marketable securities, so call it $200 million in cash. Previously, they had about $161 million in cash equivalencies, another $93 million in marketable securities, so that number is significantly higher. The cash and cash equivalents number dropped by over 50 million. So if you go back even further, December 31st, 2021, they had 325 in cash and cash equivalents, which is a massive drop. That's almost 50%. That may have to do with an acquisition, but it's still dropping at an alarmingly fast rate, if you ask me. Total current assets includes a few other items. It's a little bit higher here, 211, 275, 346. The trend is still the same. Numbers are just slightly different. Down here, total assets, I don't tend to look at this as closely. You've got things like goodwill, which to me is not important at all. Like goodwill's not going to pay your bills. Also looking at liabilities, because this isn't all. Just the decline of their cash isn't all. We also have debts that need to be paid back at some point, and we're probably paying interest on them. I shouldn't say we, I should say Astra. But so they also have debt that has been rising. 37,000 here, and now we're at 61,000. So in the previous quarter, they took out another, $14 million in debt. So for total liabilities, we're now looking at $86 million, up from $71 million previously. So our debt's going up. We're going to have to pay that off at some point, and not even including the debt, we're still getting dangerously low on our cash levels. Now, down here, I've given them another $71 million from that cash raise we previously discussed. Maybe the stock goes up, they can get $100 million out of it. But just to be safe, let's say $71 million. And right now, they're burning about $50 million a quarter. Maybe they can bring this down now that they're not dealing with Rocket 3.3, but developing a new rocket is super expensive. So I can't imagine that they can bring it down by that much. Perhaps revenue can go up as well and they can offset it that way, but right now, as things stand, we're burning $50 million a quarter, and that's being generous. So that means in terms of cash runway left, how long we have money in the bank to pay our employees, by we, of course, meaning Astra, we have 5 quarters, which is 1 year and 3 months. So even after this new raise, Astra's looking at 1 year and 3 months of cash available. And how long are we talking before getting the new rocket flying? Well, from that earnings call, it's certainly not going to fly in 2023. 2024 even sounds a little unlikely to me. They're talking about doing some thorough testing, which is probably good, but all sorts of test flights and things like that, those don't pay the bills. So do we have do we have 1 year and 3 months until the next launch? I think it's going to be way longer than that. So how are we going to stretch this? They're going to have to reduce their burn rate somehow. Going to have to sell a lot of engines for good margins, perhaps, and raise more money. But as I look at this, it's not worth my money. It's not worth my risk. It's a scary situation for the company. So that's all I wanted to show you from the earnings call. Let's head back and quickly do a wrap-up discussion. So, as we saw in the earnings call, we are looking at no more launches of Rocket 3.3. Rocket 4.4, I don't think will launch in 2023 for sure. Maybe 2024, but even that I wouldn't say is likely. We have a cash cushion rate right now of about 1 year and 3 months, which is not enough to get us to Rocket 4.0 launching, so maybe they can find some way to raise some more money, take out some more debt, but again, that debt has to be paid back at some point, of course. It's a really difficult situation. So if you're an owner of the Astra right now, you're counting on the engine business to basically save you and get you through until Rocket 4.0 is launching. And generally when you start launching a rocket, it's not even profitable then. It takes a while for economies of scale to kick in, for getting more frequent launches before you finally start to turn a profit. This balance sheet to me is very scary, and I'm not going to invest in the company. That's just my opinion. Astra investors, I fully understand why you originally bought into this company. They had very ambitious, very grand goals. They were saying a lot of the right things. It was an exciting company at the time. They were going to make space more accessible, make it cheaper. All these things we all want to believe in a brighter future, but it just hasn't happened. So for that reason, I'm staying away from this company. I'm not going to tell anyone else what to do. Maybe you know something I don't. but I wish the company the best of luck. I never wish ill on any investor, any company, as long as they're trying their best. I do believe the management team is sincerely trying here. I don't think there's any kind of fraud going on where they're trying to take advantage of investors. It just hasn't worked. The strategy hasn't worked. The engineering hasn't worked. So on Astra, I'm not an investor, and I won't be one anytime in the near future. I hope this has been informative for you, and if you found it interesting, you'll consider hitting like and subscribe. I'll come back with videos covering space companies, space stocks all the time, and join our Discord server if you haven't, linked down in the description below. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.